लो आ रहा है. Aditi, you may ask others to rejoin, please. Yeah, I think they are coming up. Yeah, they are coming in. 6 have come.
All right. Okay. So
I'll make you the host, sir. Most of them have come. I will make you the host, sir.
Right, sir. Right.
Yeah.
See, I mean, I've talked a lot. In fact, unlike the last session, I've not let anybody speak. Now I've spoken a lot. So I would like to take questions now.
Yeah.
And try and answer them.
Okay. In that case, may I ask anyone, please, either your experience or share the understanding of the focus group, what Dr. Reddy has talked about. Anybody?
Sir, I have a question.
Yeah, please, Aditi. Yeah, please go ahead.
I want to know how this is different from sampling methods. So because in some of the sampling methods, we do take an expert opinions, this thing, and arrive at a conclusion. So how is this different from that? And how about we conducting a SWOT analysis and then arriving at a solution? So how are these methods different from each other? Like, what is the uniqueness of Delphi vis-a-vis the other systems?
Okay, right. Right. So sampling and now Delphi technique are entirely different. Now, sampling method is you identify whether it should be probabilistic sampling or non-probabilistic sampling, right? And what you do in Delphi technique is you identify people, you identify 5 people, 6 people, whatever, or in focus groups, again, you identify the experts, you identify who should be part of the focus group, which means to say that it is highly probabilistic or purposive sampling. It's completely purposive. It's purposeful. And the sampling, you don't take actually the expert's view. You understand based on your research question whether it has to be random sampling or it has to be snowball sampling. Say, like I'll give you an example. If you don't know, I mean, if you are doing research in a niche area, then what you would do is you will take recourse to snowball sampling, because you don't know how many are members of a particular society. So you identify one, and then you ask that person, and then you ask that person to give you at least 2 more names, and you go to those 2, and then you snowball like that. So you don't actually, oftentimes, mostly, maybe rarest of the rare cases, you would need an expert's opinion on sample. Sampling is something which is decided between you and your research supervisor. That's about the sampling part. The second part, SWOT analysis, is different. When you look at SWOT, our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, with this a framework to understand this situational analysis, to make a situational analysis of any organization or any enterprise. You want to try and understand what are the strengths, and when you talk about strengths, which are internal positives, and then you look at the weaknesses, which are again internal negatives, and then you look at the opportunities, which are external positives, and then you look at the threat, which is again external, which is not in your control, which is because of the business environment in which you are functioning. So which is external negative. So that is how you do an analysis to understand what is your situation. It helps you, a SWOT analysis helps you understand the situation analysis, an appraisal, so to say, of any enterprise. So that's the SWOT. Coming to Delphi technique or focus group interviews, we discussed this in the last class as well, that you have quantitative research methods, you have qualitative research methods. Within qualitative research methods, most often used research methods are case method or focus group interviews or your Delphi technique, and these are like and within among those three, these two, that is Delphi technique and the focus group interviews, are both same in the sense they're based on the method of interviewing, right? So that is why I thought I'll tell you about the Delphi technique. So that's the response to your question, Aditi.
Yes, sir. So the first iteration and second iteration is given, and third and fourth iterations are given by the same experts or different experts, sir?
Same experts. Your experts are going to be the same.
For all the 4 iterations?
For all the 4 iterations, your experts are going to be the same. You should not change the experts. If you change the experts, then like you don't have, you can't. I mean, you will get a very bad estimate, right? You will stick. First of all, you will be very, very careful in selecting these 5 or 6 or 7 or 4 experts. Once you select them, you don't change them. You stick with them. You persist with them.
And what's the process and the maximum number of what's the process of selecting the experts and the maximum number of keeping those experts, sir?
I told you the thumb rule is it should cover the 360-degree perspective of that particular industry. Let's say if it is cement industry, or let's say if it is whatever that you're dealing with, like in that particular industry or that particular phenomena, you should cover all perspectives. So that's when you get the holistic estimate of in our case the steel industry.
Sir, I have some doubt. I would like to get a clarity on this.
Most welcome. Please ask.
Thank you.
Professor Pokhriyal, make me the host so that I can share that sheet.
Yeah. While I'm sharing it, I just add one point. The iteration may not be fixed. It depends when you reach to the saturation point where the range gets minimized, so you get more accurate. And to what Mahendra has asked, I think more to do with the stakeholders to involve all the stakeholders. You gave the example of cement industry. So what are the raw material required? What is the energy? So that's how you, Dr. Reddy, you mean to say that the expert group, which are directly or indirectly involved with the cement industry, or for that matter, yes, please.
Yeah. I would still go back and say, like it should cover all the perspectives that exist depending on your research question. Whatever is your research question, for that research question, you should cover all the perspectives. And if you give me a particular situation, a particular research question, I can tell you like what could it be. Anyway, Mahendra Pokhriyal ji, please go ahead and ask your question.
Thank you, sir. My concern is a little different, that when what we understand that the focus group experts cannot be changed till we come to the final result, final conclusion. My question is that when we have zeroed in on a particular focus group of the experts, And when we have got the feedback from the experts, which was having a huge gap, then we go for the second iteration. And then again, we analyze and we still find that there's a gap which cannot be accepted. Then we go for the third iteration. Now, is there a possibility when the expert committee, some of the members may stick to their what they have said and is not now taking this further? So how do we conclude the analysis of this thing when the experts say that this is what is the opinions are not matching and there is a conflict of opinion? So how do we conclude such analysis?
Well, that's the ability of the researcher. That is why I said, a lot of qualitative research. People think qualitative research is very easy. It actually is not, because you need to get into steel industry, get into the demand for steel industry so very much that you should always be able to find a tool to nudge, meaning to say, change a particular expert's estimation. And having said this, if while selecting the experts, you make sure you select the experts who are slightly open-minded. But then if you have an expert who is close-minded and then who sticks, no 9%, no 9%, no 9%. No, I've seen this, it's not going to happen. Maybe then you can change the expert. I mean, in the rarest of the rare cases. But then you select the experts in such a way that they're good, they're known in their field.
Dr. Reddy is not audible.
Yeah, I'm
Is it
calling him up. I'm calling him up. Dr. Reddy is going to join.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. So just a recap, by the time Dr. Reddy joins us in qualitative technique. So there are these three method which has been mentioned is the case method or the Delphi method and the focus group interview, what we are talking about right away. Please note this down, because anybody who is going to do in a qualitative one of these method or there is another method, grounded theory, which Dr. Reddy mentioned last week about it. So these four, I think, approach you should write down, and you would be using one of them. So here we have Dr. Reddy. Over to you, Dr. Reddy. Yeah, please.
I'm so sorry,
It's okay. Yeah.
I know Dehradun was better. Bangalore, I never thought it's.
You're right.
But then, there's also another problem. The problem has got to do with the Wi-Fi network that we have. For the next meeting, if you have any, I'll get my dongle so that I'll have to search.
Next
And
week,
then-
we are going to have it. Yeah.
So, Mahendra Pokhriyalji, you asked a question and I was saying something and I was going on talking.
My request, if you ask question pertain to your area, in your industry, which you know it very well, so it will help us both to understand your industry as well as try to give you a focus answer.
Sir, I am. Can I ask a question? I am GHP Rao, connected
Please.
from Bareilly.
Yes.
Actually,
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Rao.
very good afternoon to each one of you, sir.
Good afternoon.
Very good afternoon. Please go ahead.
Delphi is a good method for conducting estimates and future predictions. It's a very easy to learn and implement it. But there are certain issues with it. Like, for example, Delphi techniques is, like it has no single methodology or it's lack of methodology rather. And it makes hard to create a survey tool. So how do you deal with this? Actually, procedure is easy, but it doesn't have a large knowledge, large known internal validity. So how do you deal with these issues?
Yeah, Mr. Rao, I don't know. I mean, this is not easy. This is one of the difficult research methods. In fact, when I was in the market research industry, I used to work with Indian Market Research Bureau. Most of the qualitative research would happen through the focus groups or the Delphi technique. One thing, they're two different methods, right? Though they are interrelated. It is not only for estimates. Let's say, what are the product features that should be there in order to make a particular product, better. It's product, even from starting the product to product innovation to organizational effectiveness to anything. If it's a question which can be put in a particular format to the experts, you can use the Delphi technique. The one thing, there is selection of the experts, which is difficult. Doing a lot of desk research even before getting there is something which is very tough. So that way, I don't quite agree that way that this is an easy method. That's not an easy method, and at the same time, for estimations it is good. That said, it could be used anywhere else, so long as the research objectives, the questions can be answered more effectively through the expert opinion or the Delphi technique.
I think, let me put it this way, Delphi makes it little hard to create a survey tool, if I am correct. And also it's slow because it relies on expert responses or opinion. So how do you, deal with this drawbacks of this Delphi?
Okay, so yeah, I mean, it's the question that you ask. How refined. Always the answer, to any question depends on the question that you ask. How well can you refine a question? How well can you ask a question? That's what determines how good is your interview schedule. Your interview schedule is not going to have more than, let's say, in the most expansive Delphi technique or expert opinion, process, you will not have more than 8 to 10 questions, right? It's going to be 3-4 questions, 7-8 questions, definitely no more than 9-10 questions. But how well will you arrive at those questions? Like you need to research a lot in order to get to those questions, right? That said, the survey tool is tricky. It's difficult, but it's also challenging. It may not be applicable for, again, all research problems. I'm not saying like Delphi technique is a one size fit all kind of a garment. No, that's not what it is. But the only way that you can work around creating a good tool is to do as much research as possible. If it is let's say demand for steel, it's a very plain question. It's a very simple question. If it is, let's say, Mutarna yesterday was saying, like supply chain or institutional marketing, and somebody else was talking about supply chain in oil and gas. Probably it's you, Mr. Rao. So when you look at a complex problem like that, like you evaluate all the research methods that are at your disposal and identify the one that's most suitable. For some, Delphi technique is the most suitable research technique. I don't know if I answered your question.
Yes, sir. Well, like I'm working with the oil industry. Rather, my research area is also into the this domain which I'm working. So the groups are different, like experts on one side and the consumers on other side.
Right.
So my basic question was it only captures the expert's opinion. So what about the one who are on the other side of the framework? Yeah.
Right. So I mean, I now understand where you're coming from. See, like if you have a research question which involves consumers, which involves subjects which is little large, probably Delphi technique is not going to be a good tool to use, right? You will probably need survey technique wherein you have more structured questionnaires, and then you see how can you randomize your sample and take that sample. That probably is going to be a good way. Expert opinion, is as you rightly said, it answers only one part of the question, and it doesn't answer the other part of the question. If you have anything else within your research, you could also use expert opinion method, a Delphi technique, or the focus group interviews.
May I
Thank you,
come,
sir.
Actually, if you see that, the results for Delphi, I mean, they're hard to know if they're reliable or not, because it does not produce right or wrong answer, because it has to do with the focus group that we have. So, as Dr. Reddy has said, yeah, this technique, it's based on the opinion. So perhaps the last comment would be, if you have too many stakeholders which are not in your research question, so obviously Delphi method may not be the right one. Dr. Reddy, I mean, please comment on.
No, you're right. You're right. So it depends on the research question. It depends on the research question, meaning to say, like if you have a research question that's got to do with, let's say, like when I studied inequalities in health, education, income, like I could not use Delphi technique, like by no means, by no stretch of imagination. I had to do a field survey, right? And for the field survey, I had to do a quantitative research. So now it depends on the research question. It could be a part of your research where like you need experts' opinion. Then you could, I mean, these days using mixed methods is the
Yes.
norm, right?
Yes,
So
absolutely.
you can use this to answer, like one part of your research, and for the other part, like whatever else that you've got to do, you go ahead and do that.
Dr. Reddy, this brings me another question which has been asked many of the research scholar. When that is called validating of the data. So be it quant and the mix, and then you may have one of the objective with the qualitative. Then how you are going to vet the data. So perhaps an interview with these expert and to arrive at a saturation point, and that also help researcher towards the end of a particular qualitative research. Your comment on this?
Well, I don't know if I understood your statement right, but what I understand is, now this estimation is only an estimation. This opinion is only an opinion, right? There are multiple ways of validating this opinion in terms of whatever else literature that's available in the market, in the industry. Like if there's anything which is contradicting this opinion a lot, then like maybe what you've got is not the right estimate. Like but oftentimes what I've seen in action is, like the 3 years that I was in market research industry, like it works, and then you kind of validate through the other sources. If everything is moving towards the same direction, then okay, like this is good, or this could be good, right?
Yeah.
But yes, that's another major disadvantage. Like you can't be extremely certain of the result that you get, right? uh, so that only when your research question is amenable enough to go for the Delphi technique, then you plan very well, and you would probably like end up getting what you want to get.
That's right. Mr. Mahendra, please come again with your question.
I mean, that was answered, but I would like to take this opportunity, since you have asked that, since my area of research is logistic and supply chain management, sir, how do you, I mean, what do you think that will be the expert that I can look for in this area, who can help me to use this Delphi technique in such a way that I can find the solution to the problem that I have?
Pokhriyalji, what is your research question? Is it as general as supply chain in the oil and gas management?
No, this is basically on digitalization of the supply chain for the global reach.
Okay. So if it is digitalization of supply chain, well, no, you could use focus groups, or you could. I mean, Delphi technique is like is an expert opinion method, and I told you, like focus groups is similar to this, and what you do in focus groups is, like you get all the experts in a particular room. Like you could get somebody who is an expert in information technology or oil and gas information technology, and somebody else, like who's good in the nuts and bolts of the manual supply chain, and whatever else are the supply chain parameters. You take all of them, you take those experts, put them in a room, and then like again, there now, I will have to say that making your interview schedule, the the uh, the what the interview schedule in the Delphi technique is little static. It's not so dynamic. But in focus groups, it'll be extremely dynamic. Meaning to say, all the window that you have is that 2 hours, 2.5 hours, 1.5 hours, or whatever it is. Where like it would be like a panel discussion, and you would be like a moderator, and you will have to have that presence of mind to like funnel things down to where you want to get the discussion to, right? So you could very well use focus groups.
We have 9 more minutes. So,
Thank you.
anybody else coming up with a specific question? Either Mr. Muthanna, Mr. Shaurya, please come in. And very specific question. Yeah.
Yeah, so my question has already
Mr.
been
Shaurya.
answered, Yeah, hi, sir. So my question has already been answered, in the, in the previous discussion, where my question was related to the research area, like financial inclusion in rural India. So there, my question was, because here we are talking about a big segment, large segment, of rural India, where we might go with the sampling technique, right? So there will be questions. So you have already answered it, that in such research areas we might need to adopt multiple techniques. There will be research questions, research problems, for which we might go for sampling technique, and there will be questions where we can do away with the Delphi or technique or focus group technique.
Okay, we have Trisha and Shristi. Please come in. This is the best opportunity. We are actually discussing threadbare of a particular method, whether it is suitable or not. If yes, why it is suitable. If not, why it is not. So do we have Shristi and Shristi Sharma? I think Shristi is logged in.
Good afternoon.
Yes, Shristi, please go ahead.
So I have no question. Delphi method, it is more focused on the expert, and in my case, my question will be like it'll be sample question here.
In that case, discuss your area so that Dr. Reddy may give his expert comment.
My area is investment. It's related to the investment basically. Financial investment, both in stocks and in mutual funds. I mean, personal investment. And the behavioral biases in personal finance in both stock and mutual fund. So, sir, in my area, I don't think it's applicable.
Well, it is not. Delphi technique definitely is not applicable to your area. I don't know if you are building a Garch model, or if you are trying to ascertain what of investors and the markets that you said. Well,
Sir,
yeah.
Personal investor has different behavior at the time he's investing. I mean, when he takes the investment decisions, his behavior, each investor has a different behavior pattern at that point of time. So I have to be like, it can't be Delphi, that's what I'm saying.
Right, it can't be that. Then it'll have to be the personal attributes, the psychological and behavioral attributes. You will have to see, like what kind of behavioral attributes and around the behavioral attributes, you will have to construct a questionnaire.
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Srishti. Do we have Trisha? Trisha, I think Trisha is connected with us.
She
Or-
was connected.
Or Anupam, we have Anupam. Please, if you have any question, any query, this is the best platform. Anybody has any query, any question? Dr. Reddy, we talk about the servoquel. I mean, this is another area which the service quality. You know, many of them have involved in the retail sector.
Right. So Professor Pokhriyal, what I would suggest is, you take the areas of research, not exactly the topics, the areas of research of all these students, and then we'll try and put together something which would be like kind of related to their areas of work. So that way, like we could get a lot of participation, and the session would also be useful. Sarupwal per se, I don't see, like anybody would use Sarupwal that way, right? I'm sorry, I'm saying this considering the kind of response. If you know the areas in which they're going to work and what they might want to do, so even when their research topics are not finalized, we could talk about a research method which is going to resonate with them, resonate with their area of research.
Right. Actually, since this is a part of research methodology, and I have asked them to give their research area, because side by side working in their own area, it helps them to understand which methodology they are going to use and why. And also during the exam, they can give exactly the example of work they are doing it. So with that objective, I have asked them to send. Some of them have sent me, but some of them have yet to, respond. So Mr. Muthanna, I think he has gone offline. In the first day, he was the one, talking about the service quality from Mr. Muthanna from Abu Dhabi, but I think he is not connected. So you may give your, we have 2.5 minutes, so you just give a final thought on the topic.
Right. So see, what we have talked so far is the Delphi technique, expert opinion method. There's also another method that I told you that's got to do with the focus groups. And focus groups is going to be different in the sense, like you are putting together experts, but then like you don't have time for iterations, iteration 1, iteration 2, iteration 3. You do a lot of desk research, put together experts, and as I said earlier, it's going to be extremely dynamic in the sense that you have people live, and then you're speaking to them, and the process of funneling there, meaning to say, like getting to answer your research question or your research objective, will have to be managed extremely well by your research supervisor and yourself. When you're getting to the focus group, I wanted to say more about focus groups, but then what we'll do is we'll collect your research areas, and then whatever that resonates with your research area, when we talk about that, we'll also talk about focus groups. It's much similar to Delphi technique, with only those differences that it's one dynamic, and two, funneling down, you don't have many iterations. Whatever iterations that you get right there in that 1.5 to 3 hours that you will have. You could probably get your focus group interviews planned in such a way that there's a break after 45 minutes or an hour or thereabouts, and then while the participants take a break, have tea, biscuits, and all of that, you again come back and see like how dynamically you can handle the rest of the focus group well, to funnel things down. So that's something that you probably could do in the focus group interviews. For now, I would leave you here and then maybe come back for something else, or